What is up, Survivor Thrivers? Authentically Me, Regina B, is back with another video. We are going through our therapy workbook. It's not you, it's them. 30 days of hope and help for the adult child of a narcissist. If you're new to the channel, this is my second time going through the book. I originally went through and sat down and wrote everything out like 2 years ago. And I'm just doing it again to see where I'm at along the journey of healing. Healing is something that is constant. It's not something that you do one time. It's something that you practice every day, basically. So we are to day 22. Let me turn to that. And I want to try to get these out more frequently so we can move on to our next therapy workbook. But I want to get through this. I'm one of those people, when I start something, I like to finish it. I could just be like, you know what, we're done. I already did it. Go watch the other videos. But I really want to finish this journey, finish going through it this second time, and then move on to our next therapy workbook. So day 22 says, letting go of defending myself. The narcissist generally has an endless repertoire for delivering criticism. That's a quote by Eleanor Pison, The Wizard of Oz, and Other Narcissists. So let's see what Debbie says. A major manipulation tool used by the narcissistic parent is to undermine your independent thinking by criticizing you. Whatever attempt you make to please, it's never enough and you always fall short. Even the most courteous disagreement with their opinion can bring a comment about your rudeness or their ultimate weapon, copious tears. Remember this, the goal of their criticism is to engage you in a debate which you can never win. If you react with a normal but ill-advised inclination to make them see how they are wrong, you are giving them exactly the ammunition they need to prove what a victim they are of their rude, cruel offspring. Give up the idea of defense with a narcissist once and for all. Again, this is why therapists specifically trained in this field know better than to bring a narcissist parent into a counseling session. It will only leave you more wounded. Instead, say something like, "We disagree," and change the subject. Refuse to engage. Day 22, letting go of defending myself. I love the quote, the narcissist generally has an endless repertoire for delivering criticism. The major manipulation of the criticism and getting you to go along with what they have to say. I've definitely experienced that. I try not to criticize my children. I'm more aware of it now that I'm older, of like, kids can see things that you don't mean as a criticism, but they can take it to heart like you're criticizing them when really you're just trying to correct them. But now that I'm older, I'm more aware when I'm being hypercritical, and I try to tell myself to be quiet, or I try to sit with myself and think like, why am I thinking that way? Why am I being, hypercritical? It's not that big of a deal. If it's something about like their clothes, I let my kids like pick their clothes out for school and stuff. And I used to be like everything matchy and why you wear that with that? But now it's more so like, if it's too short, the shirt is too short, change that. I don't want you showing your belly button. But I don't like give a criticism like, you shouldn't be wearing them little shirts because you're showing your stomach and you're trying to be fast. Like, I don't say it like that. I just say, when you raise your hands, your stomach is showing, go ahead and change your clothes. Or, if the pants are too small now, but it's something they enjoy. So I try not to be critical. I definitely think whatever attempt you make to please is never enough. Yes, I agree with that. Even the most courteous disagreement with their opinion can bring a comment about your rudeness or their ultimate weapon of copious tears. I feel like people that enjoy playing the victim, they do that a lot. They throw rocks and hide their hands, and then they use that as ammunition to be able to say, see, look, this is how they act. And it's like, honestly, I've learned through this journey that you don't need to defend yourself. Christ is the great defender. You're forgiven through Christ for all of your mistakes that you make. Everybody makes mistakes, and you don't owe anyone anything. If you've hurt someone or you've offended someone, definitely go to them and apologize and ask for forgiveness. Own up to your mistake, but you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't owe anyone anything, and you have to remember that nobody owes you anything either. And you have to stand in that. So when you say, I don't have to defend myself to anyone, no one has to defend themselves to you either. So I just put that into practice, and I will say that when you do have a narcissist parent, any kind of disagreement you get into with them, any kind of back and forth, you're never going to win. You're always going to end up feeling defeated. You're always going to end up being blamed. You're always going to end up, being maybe disrespectful or something like that. And for me, like you guys know, it ultimately leads to an offensive insult, being hung up on, and then being ghosted. And now that I'm older, I've healed from that through going through therapy and through going through this journey with you guys and meeting other people through this channel and through different things that have gone through the same thing. But before, I was just sitting on my couch realizing this, like it bothered me. But then once I got a family, like once I got my husband and stuff like that, it didn't bother me. And the only thing that bothered me was like, okay, when you are upset with me, you ghost my children, and I don't think that they deserve that. And where I made a mistake is years and years ago, going back and forth, I mentioned that. And I'm gonna tell you guys, hold stuff close to you. Don't always be quick to tell people ways that they've hurt you, especially if they're an abusive person or a narcissistic person, because they will put that in their tool belt and they will use that as a weapon against you later. And it was something that I had only really shared with my husband. This was before I had all my children. I only had my son. And it was like, at that point, I think maybe it was a year I hadn't heard or something. Like I told you guys, it would go through this cycle. And, if I didn't agree with something, it would be the back and forth, right? And so when she did end up coming around, when I said something, we had these long come together talk and blah, 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 blah. And I had mentioned like, that really hurts. Like, I understand if you're upset with me, but, to not reach out to my son, just like my son, it hurts me. And so that was my mistake. And when you do engage and you go in that back and forth like that, you just have to be very, very careful, because your words can be used against you later. The great thing about prayer and journaling and just taking everything to God in prayer is that now I've grown stronger, and that it doesn't hurt me the way that it used to. Because now I just look at my children, I look at all the people they're around, and I'm like, they're not really losing anything. And they're amazing. So, they brighten everybody's day, So that's what I would say about that. Give up the idea of the defense once and for all. Just agree to disagree. And even if you say like, we disagree, just let them have their opinion. That's your opinion, and you have every right to have your opinion. But I would agree with everything that Debbie says here, especially when she ends it with the final sentence and says, refuse to engage. Refuse. You don't need to win the argument. You don't need to win anything. Your character, how you carry yourself, how you operate with your family or your children, or how you are in the world is enough. You don't have to prove yourself, okay? Let's move on to the affirmation of the day. It says, I now release my need to argue and change others' mind. I know who I am. So she always recommends you say that 3 times, taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. I now release my need to argue and change others' minds. I know who I am. I now release my need to argue and change others' mind. I know who I am. What this means to me. I don't have to prove my point. It only leads to me feeling bad about myself, because I know that's not who I am. And usually my need to argue isn't an attempt to change another person's mind, and it's a futile attempt, because you can't change people's minds. We all have a free mind, we all have a free will. And anytime that I have gotten into an argument, especially if it's late at night, you're drinking, it just leads to disaster. And it just leads to feeling bad. It leads to like you have to have a moment where you let the other person get over it. You got to get over it. Then if you're in the wrong, you have to go and humble yourself and apologize. It doesn't feel good to argue. It doesn't solve anything. A lot of times it just makes the situation worse. And for me, I am an arguer. And I'm an arguer, and I have to work on still, and I'm getting better at it. And I hope that this year I will be the best that I have been at refraining from it. But I'm an arguer, and I know that it's because of my past, and I know it's because of, traumas that have happened to where it's just like, oh no, you are not gonna treat me like that. You are not gonna do like that. That's how I got treated when I was little, and blah, blah, blah. It's the Napoleon complex. Like, I was treated like that when I was little. You are not gonna treat me like that. And a lot of times when you're tired at night, things can get misinterpreted. And so, it's just best to release your need to argue. And honestly, biting my tongue has been a practice that I've been putting into place. I don't do it perfectly all the time, but when I do it, because I know that it's something between me and God, I'm like, look, God, I didn't say that, and I really wanted to say that, and I didn't say it. Putting a rein on your tongue, as it says in the Bible. And I know who I am. So I don't got to argue. So the last thing we have is the journal to heal, letting go of making them see, protective steps. Exploring this journal entry, what it would be like to say, we disagree, and change the subject with your narcissist. You know this person well. Write what they would say or do to criticize you. List other topics of conversation that you could change the subject to that would be less volatile. Next, write what you imagine would happen. Would they continue the criticism? Then write the conversation that would happen next. Write a visual picture of what it would be like to gently hang up the phone or leave the conversation or leave the situation altogether at that point. Write about the strength this would show. Be your own cheerleader. Believe in yourself in this entry. Dang, Debbie want us to do a lot. I think I remember this. I'm glad I don't have to sit down and do this right now. But let's break it down. So she says, exploring this journal entry, what it would be like to say we disagree, and change the subject with your narcissist. You know this person well. Write what they would say or do to criticize you. For me, it never starts with criticism. Especially like a few years ago when everything happened. So for me, and I don't know if this is some of your experiences out there, we're having a dialogue. We're having a disagreement. I've made my stance. She's made her stance. I attempted to do, the emotional, mature thing and say, I don't want to go back there. That was 2-3 years ago. I can't change anything. You can't change anything. Let's just move forward. Let's not talk about this. And so it would be like this, because she has to be more intellectual than me. So it's, I agree. No need to talk about the past. The past is in the past, and you're right. We can't change anything. And if we try to change things, blah, blah, blah. But then it was like a circle. It would come right back around. And, when you said that, I was jealous of you, I just want to say, we're not talking about, I already said, like, I don't want to go back and talk about, what happened 2 years ago. Let's just start from here and move forward from here. This was me just being mature, y'all. I remember I was in my kitchen. I was like, okay, Gina, you're not going back and forth, because I was irritated because I was like, what you was doing that made me say what I said. Like, but okay. So I was just like, we just said we wasn't gonna talk about that. That's, you know, right. And you know, we both made so much progress since then and blah blah blah. And I just, you know, it really just took me aback when I don't want to do that. And so at this point, that's when I feel myself, you know, starting to get irritated. But instead, I'm just like, you know, I don't want to talk about that. You know, you said some things, I said some things, and I meant what I said. You know, I didn't never cursed her out, never have, and never would call her out her name or nothing. But I said what I said, and I meant what I said. And you said a lot of things, and if you meant what you said, then that's fine. But let's move on from here. Mind you, I got kids running around the kitchen. My husband's like standing there trying to get me to like just stop talking, just you know, he's doing like this, and I'm just like, I'm trying to be mature. And so what led to her insulting me? So I just was like, you know, you say things like, you know, keep on living, or you gonna see one day. And I said, and it feels like a threat. Ain't nobody threat, you know. And it was just like, that was the truth that poked that bear, because it just felt like whenever you would say those statements of like, oh, you gonna see one day, or, you know, you just keep on living. And she tried to throw my great grandmother in there, who I'm very close to, my grandmother and my great grandma. Well, she used to say that to me. That doesn't make it right. It's almost like a doom and gloom. Like, you just wait and see, it's gonna happen to you in the future. You know, your kids are gonna do this to you. And it just felt like that. And I was like, no. And so then the criticism came. That was a long-winded way of me telling you how. So it never starts for me with being criticized. It always starts with trying to get me to do something that I said I don't want to do, or talk about something that I don't want to talk about. And then once I say something that is a truth, then comes it ain't nothing. And it was said to me, and it's still threatening. Like, I wouldn't say that to my kid. Like, I don't want any of the bad things or anything that they even experience with me that isn't that great for them to then experience it with their kids. Like, we leveling up. Each generation gets better than the generation before them is what I'm hoping for. So you know, as I got older and had kids, it's like I wouldn't say something like, well, you just wait and see, or you wait until, you know, they become this and that. Yeah, I know it's going to be hard, but what am I waiting and seeing? I mean, what are you hoping for? So once I said that, and then that's when it was just like, you self-righteous me, click. And I was just like, okay. And then that's what started this journey. And then that's what started me going to therapy and discovering everything that I've discovered here. So that was the first part. So that is how it would happen for me if I was writing this down. And then it says list other topics of conversation that you could change the subject to. I mean, with a person that has to be right all the time, I realize you just let them lead the conversation and just ask questions. Like, even if I'm talking to somebody that like to just lead, I just ask questions. You know, I don't really get into like debating. Next, write what you would imagine would happen when they continued the criticism. Again, like I said, it doesn't lead with criticism and the clicking, calling me out my name and then hang it up, because then that's kind of like a cowardly way, because then you don't know what the person is going to say. I know they may feel like it's like a power thing, like, yeah, I clicked, but it's like, no, you just insulted someone and didn't give them a chance to insult you out of fear of what I would say back, which I wouldn't cuss it. You know, I wouldn't call her out her name. So next time, write what you would imagine. And then it says, then write the conversation that would happen next. You can draw a picture if you want to. It says, write a visual picture of what it would be like to gently hang up the phone or leave the situation altogether. It will probably be very empowering. Write about the strength it would show. Be your own cheerleader. Believe in yourself in this entry. I think if you have not done something like this, You definitely should. When I first went through this journal and this journey, I did journal about it and I did put the pen to paper. And it is a very empowering thing to see yourself doing the mature thing and doing the emotionally sound thing and not getting into a back and forth, not allowing someone to criticize you. I mean, honestly, we criticize ourselves enough. I know I do. I can be very hypercritical of myself. I know a part of it is learned behavior, and a part of it is when I look at my zodiac sign. I'm a Capricorn. A lot of it, if you guys have ever seen any videos that talk about different zodiac signs and they trait, yes, I can be very melancholy. I can be hypercritical. I can tend to be negative, so I have to work to not be those things. But I know for me, I criticize myself enough. And I have some great cheerleaders around here, and God is so amazing. Like, I could be in a thought where I'm being hypercritical about something, and one of these little kids will be like, "Mommy, I love you. Mommy, this looks nice." And I just be like, "Thank you." Like, where did that go? So I always feel like in those moments, it's God, like, using my kids to snap me out of being critical. So don't put yourself in a situation where somebody is going to criticize you, especially if you're on this journey and you're new to this journey, because you're very sensitive right now. And whatever you're trying to do in this journey is something new. Especially if nobody in your family has ever said, "You know what, I'm not going to deal or chase down a toxic person. I'm not going to chase down somebody that has these abusive ways. I'm not going to chase down somebody that ain't fooling with my kids." So just make sure that you take care of you and you keep yourself safe. And if you know that somebody is going to be hypercritical of you, the way you eat, the way you walk, the things you say, the way you think, limit your time around them until you establish your self-esteem, until you establish your confidence in yourself, so that if they do say something negative to you, like she just said in the previous page, I know who I am. So I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to argue with you. I know who I am. And, if they try to throw stones at you saying you did something, just remember, you're a sinner saved by grace through faith. So you're going to make mistakes. If you slip up and you don't get everything that, you've learned or we've gone over in this book, if you don't get everything right, it's okay. God is the God of second chances. So you'll have another chance to do it and another chance to do it. And if you make a mistake, it's okay. So my children are back in. Y'all about to see my puppy. Oh, no, Autumn. No. Okay. So make sure you find an opportunity to get out there and get after whatever your get after is. If you're able to get after it, I love you. God loves you so much more. Peace.